This is Johnny Bluestar. Welcome to Threshold, a global media event. Is the universe just a random dance of atoms, or is it a manifestation of a supremely intelligent architect? Can its purpose, or our purpose here on Earth, be adequately assessed? Can we commune with it, know its intentions, cooperate with its direction? Here, we define threshold as a gateway state of awareness, allowing mankind to cross into a place of real cognition. Threshold allows us to approach questions of higher reality through the door of experience rather than mere belief. Welcome to Threshold, where we tear away the veil from commercial media, bringing our audience and participants into another realm of reality and enhanced communication. Hi, this is Johnny Bluestar back on Threshold Radio with Yeliz Ruzgar for our second show. And the first show was just a fantastic journey that you took to a certain point coming back to Turkey from the United States. But going over some of the things that happened when you were in California. And it was very exciting. But that's only the beginning of your journey, right?
Absolutely. Hi, Johnny. It's great to be back on this radio show with you.
Well, what I want to know, I mean, obviously, partly professionally, you're involved with power coaching. And I think you're also writing a book, correct?
That is correct, yes. After coming back to Turkey, I decided to gather a group of people, leaders in their field, and then call that a power group. And each one of them, they took the training of becoming a power coach, which means in the logo, the power, the O, is a heart. I believe that every creation comes from our heart. Like, we have all the memories there, the past and the future. I also do believe that we create every experience from our heart. Our mind helps us to focus our attention, helps us to linearize, make time frame, so whatever we have in our hearts, that we could put it into action, into manifestation. But the real power comes from our heart and from our souls. And I got to experience that even more when I came back to Turkey. Whatever I have envisioned in California, if you can recall,
I do. I remember you had a vision, and why don't you go over it just briefly?
Absolutely. If you can recall to our first conversation, I had this oneness blessing called Diksha, and at that time, inspiration started to come and started to flow through me, and I was writing these signs, MWO, me into we into oneness. So in a way, this inspiration was telling me that when we alter our egos, when we transform our egos into the soul, into spirit, and when we create spirituals, then our life becomes in a heightened extent of being, which means we start to live on purpose. There is a purpose for everyone on this world. It is unique to each one of us. So I wouldn't be able to fulfill your life purpose. You wouldn't be able to fulfill my life purpose. But the question is, what is that unique life purpose that you have? And how can you find it? How can you get in tune with it? What happens when you do that? These are the main questions.
Well, I fundamentally agree with you. What I see is sort of there's different levels of spirituality, which may begin with sort of very small amount of belief and it may get greater. But at one point, for some people, it becomes not just believing in something, but kind of knowing something. And at that point, I think if you're true to yourself, the guidance increases. And I think for myself, I've always believed I had a purpose, but it's become clearer and clearer as I've developed.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree. And I think it would be good to talk about what is being true to ourselves. You know, we use this phrase a lot in our lives, but what does it really mean? What is to be true? I mean, can you be false to yourself in a way, right?
Yeah.
I would say being true to yourself is knowing your values and knowing who you are, your light sides and your dark sides. We all have our good sides and our bad sides, and we all are here with our egos. So there's not a single person that could say, oh my God, I don't have an ego. Once we master ourselves, and just like you said, when we are true to who we are, when we are true to our soul's calling, then everything starts to flow. It's these coincidences start to happen, or whatever you put as an intention to your mind, it becomes your reality.
Well, I've definitely seen that. I mean, I've seen in my life and read about many other people where synchronicity is strange. It doesn't have to necessarily be all that meaningful. It becomes meaningful though when you yourself, your spirit kind of confirms that this is where it's going. In other words, synchronicity can be just really kind of almost trivial sometimes. You see certain numbers, they don't necessarily mean anything, but sometimes it can be absolutely core to what you're supposed to do. But I think that depends on your kind of maturity of your spirit.
That is correct. That is very correct. And our minds, they're like mean-making machines. So it depends on the maturity of your mind or your consciousness to determine what meaning you will give to whatever you're seeing or perceiving or hearing. Like you could be seeing one thing, and you could give another meaning, and I can give another meaning to whatever we both are seeing. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
We can look at a picture. It's almost like every moment in life is an art. And we could be standing in front of a masterpiece, and you could just say, oh my God, I hated this. This is not okay. I don't like the color. And I can go like, oh my God, this is the best picture I've ever seen.
That's very, very true. I mean, I've been involved as a painter, art representative, and all kinds of things in respects to the art field. And I feel like, you put somebody in front of a painting, and maybe sometimes you're learning more about them than the painting.
That is very true. Because whatever the seer, you know how they say it, like everything that you see is a representation of what you have within. That's it.
And a lot of times, when I'm working with people and someone I'm working with an artist for commercial reasons, and someone is critical of that artist, I always have to remind myself that even if that has a lot of truth to it, it might have a lot of truth in the opposite way to another person. And I have to try and figure out, what the general effect will be. And then again, I'm dealing with my own subjectivity too.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, and I also believe that we do have a determined life purpose, which means there are certain things that every soul will go through on this life path. And at the same time, the meaning that we give to each moment, just like looking at that art piece, whatever meaning that we're giving to it, it could be lower meaning, let's say that would be number 0, or we could be looking at that picture and we can give that a higher meaning if that would be a number 10. So every day, whatever we live, every moment, we get to choose what level of consciousness, what level of meaning we will give to that experience. And it could be starting from 0 going up to 10. The more we are connected with our soul, the more we clear our karmas, or I should say negative ways of thinking, negative ways of being, negative ways of feeling. As we clear ourselves from the negativity, we tap more into our potential, which helps us to see everything in the level of 10.
Well, one thing that I've learned, because as you may remember, I'm a manager of the Wayne Dyer Experience discussion group. Yeah. And I've spent, Wayne Dyer was really important to me, not as the final answer. And one of the things he helped me with was like, okay, say a client has really abused me, which has happened. And so maybe ripped me off, maybe lied to me, maybe showed some things to a couple of friends that was really important, but it was just the wrong friends, whatever it is. And I was very angry at some of the things that happened, which you'd say could have resulted in a lawsuit, sometimes resulted in all kinds of things. But when I read Wayne Dyer, it said to, stop looking at people in a negative way. Look at them as a blessing child of God, which I have to admit was very hard to do. but I sometimes managed to do it. And I started to pray for people being prosperous and happy and in tune with the spirit and so forth, instead of being just angry. And slowly, things began to change. But I also noticed that my consciousness was changing. I began to get a feeling for being the difference between my higher and lower self. And it wasn't like I popped into my higher self and stayed there. It's like I have going up and down, up and down.
Yes. There's this metaphor that I really like. Have you ever heard of the Jacob's ladder? Jacob's ladder.
In the Old Testament.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So there's this ladder that Jacob talks about. It says that this ladder is going up to the heavens. And he talks about these angels going up and down from that level to that from
that's
that
right.
ladder.
Yeah, I remember
right?
that. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And the question he asks is, which angels go up, which angels go down? Who determines who's going to go up and who's going to go down?
Right.
That is a very good question. So every day, every moment, not even day, whatever your consciousness is, you are determining if you will go up or if you will go down. And you can only do it with the questions that you ask to yourself. So whenever a challenging situation comes up and when you feel a negative feeling, when you have a negative thought, before you put that into action towards a negative action, you can shift your mind, you can shift your emotions by simply changing the questions that you ask yourself. You can ask yourself, what is this teaching to me? Why is this whatever I'm experiencing in my life movie? Since I know that I am a faithful child of God or universe or infinite abundance, whatever you name it, and since I know that everything comes and goes through that energy field, and since I know that everything happens for my higher good, why am I seeing this? What is the lesson in this? So this is going to shift your mindset as well as your consciousness from a lower consciousness to a higher one.
Well, it's just beginning to happen to me because there are certain things that I complain about, and some of these are very minor things. But I recently, I'm always eating the wrong food, as an example. But, it's one thing to say, I've eaten the wrong food because of such and such. It's another thing to say, damn it, I ate the wrong food. What the hell is wrong? This sort of thing. And I begin to start to catch myself. In other words, I look at myself as just like I look at another person. If I'm angry at another person, why am I getting angry? What's the point? Is there another way to do it, which is following your footsteps, so to speak, in what you were saying?
Absolutely. And when I feel anger inside, because we all feel it, it's a matter of, are we going to let that feeling overdrive our thoughts and emotions and our actions? That's the biggest question. Whenever I feel anger, the first thing I remember is, if I let any word coming from my soul, because think about a word or think about a speech. How do we speak? So we have our thoughts and then we inhale, right? We have the breath going in. Mm-hmm. And then that breath goes all around our body and your mind. It feels itself with a consciousness that you are in, and then that's how your breath goes out and your words. So your every word holds your thoughts, consciousness, and your emotions. So if I let that word at an angry state go out of me, that means I'm bringing negativity to the world. That means I am adding a negative feeling and a thought, and I am responsible of all the wars. I am responsible of people killing each other because I am adding a negative thought and emotion to the universe. Can you see that picture?
Yes, I can. And you know what? I want to discuss this insight that you have about anger in just a couple of minutes. Let's take a break for just a moment, okay?
All right.
This is Johnny Bluestar, CEO of New Galaxy Enterprises, a media content development company. One of the most exciting projects I've regularly been involved in is the creation of nonfiction books, often collaborating with new authors on a wide variety of topics, either through editing or through writing, sometimes being guided by the client's direction or collaborating directly with the client. In this capacity, I've worked on a book on abolishing the caste system in India, a system of selling with integrity and sensitivity towards client and product, several fascinating memoirs, one with a Korean War veteran and crime fighter, and another with one of the greatest ventriloquists and television producers in the 50s and 60s. To learn more about New Galaxy, see samples of our work, or talk to us about your project, please go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com and fill out the contact form. In Ken Eads' book, The Involuntary Spy, Seth Rogen, a scientist, after having discovered a major deception created by a multi-billion-dollar worldwide agribusiness giant that he works for, is driven by his conscience to release the information to the public at the peril of his reputation, career, and life itself. To do this, he must take refuge in Moscow. Here is an excerpt.
Chapter 4. Yuri helped Seth settle into the safe house in Moscow. Tomorrow night, he would take the 9-hour flight to the Far East. From the apartment, he could see the colorful and distinctive towers of St. Basil's Cathedral from his window, and the glittering gold onion domes of the Church of Annunciation in the Kremlin. This was the Kremlin he had seen so many times on television. Back then, during the Cold War, it had represented the seat of the Empire of Evil. Now, it was oddly beautiful. The American press was already doing damage control on Seth's report to Russia Today. The president called it propaganda, and said that the United States was against the manufacture of biological weapons. Spokesman from the company said that Seth's report to RT should be disregarded as the words of a traitor and a thief. Because of his fleeing the country, Seth's story was discredited in every mainstream media report. "Okay, your name now is George Amers," said Yuri, smiling, holding out documents. "Here is new passport." "I'm Canadian?" "Yes." "Does that mean I have to say A all the time?" "Seth, Russians don't care what you say. But don't talk to people. Don't talk to people. And don't go anywhere. Just to work and back home. Sounds boring. Isn't that what you guys do in America anyway?" "Well, yeah." "Okay. Don't make friends. If you want a girl, we get you girl." "That sucks." "Look, it's only for 6 months. Then you can do what you want. If you see anything suspicious, call me." 6 months, eh?" "Yes, 6 months. Oh, and shave mustache and color hair." "What?" "You prefer shave head and color mustache?" No, that's okay. I'll take the hair color. And we fix nose." "What's wrong with my nose?" "Nose too big." "It's not." "We fix anyway." "Okay, let me see if I've got it. Don't go anywhere, don't make friends, sleep with prostitutes that you send to me, and wear a disguise." "Yes, you are smart. Don't forget to use lenses I gave you for eyes, and..." "What?" "Lose some weight." Seth worked on his disguise with the materials Yuri had left in the safe house. He said a fond farewell to the mustache that had been with him since high school, and picked a dark brown color to mask his light brown hair. With the contacts in, his eyes changed from green to brown. He didn't even recognize himself. The surface disguise was the easy part. Being George Amers would be the true disguise to master.
This next song by Lightstorm is a remarkable musical depiction of the god Shiva, represented as a symbolic, cosmic, ecstatic dancer engaged in the creation and destruction of the unending and ever-changing elements of the universe.
His first step calls creation forth, and then the dance begins. It changes with each single beat. He lets his hand drum sing. Silent entourage keeps dancing on and on. Action swirl as burning light in supernova style. It is the dance of life and death. Can you see his blissful smile? Silent entourage keeps dancing on and on. Entourage, our dance of love is glorious to mine. I dance with you deep in my heart. I am your loving child.
So we were talking a little bit about anger. Anger is one of my favorite parts of my journey because if there's one thing I've done successfully, it's getting rid of myself as a perpetually, continually angry person, which I was. And I got there because I believed if I meditated and had goals, writing and bringing people together about meditation and things, that these goals were sufficient and then God would take care of me. But what I didn't understand was that God didn't just want me to work an ordinary life or being an author or being somebody bringing people together, even trying to raise their consciousness. He wanted me closer to him. He wanted me to be part of that field of consciousness, which Wayne Dyer, who I mentioned before, he would call the field of intention. And look at that, the field of intention, the field of purpose.
Yes.
And so as I did that, as I constantly worked on my anger by trying to see people as blessed and trying to, no matter what they did to me, trying to raise my consciousness, it actually started to work. The anger started to diminish. And recently, I sometimes can be sort of in a place of something like what you call unconditional love, where I can actually respect them and be nice to them, even when they're completely freaking out or doing something bad against me.
That is beautiful. And at the same time, there is a thin line there, which means like every emotion or every feeling has a purpose too. Just like we have our life purposes, there's a reason why we are triggered to feel that feeling. And if that feeling is coming from an intention to serve the other, then that is a good judgment.
Yeah, in other words, that sometimes these forces that compose anger can be actually used for good.
Absolutely.
And should be. I agree with that. They should be. There's a difference between, I won't go into the details, but there's a kind of anger that is absolutely toxic, and it's sort of where you're gratifying yourself by hurting somebody else.
Yes.
It's concerned with retaliation and revenge. But you can be like a parent to a child who's running out in the street, and you want to yell at them and maybe even scare them a little bit because they're not wise enough to realize what they should do, what they should do to stay off the street and why. And sometimes you have to tell immature people to back off and scare them a little bit. And you're not necessarily wanting to hurt them at all. You might have to hurt them, but you're not going to enjoy hurting them. You may have to just can't attack my child or my wife or whatever.
Yes. And if you are at a state of higher consciousness, you become the observer of your experience. And in that state, you can let all the feelings come and go, including the negative ones. And sometimes negative feelings, judgment, control, anger, jealousy, these emotions can be utilized, can be used as a power. Sometimes it helps us to protect our self, our standards, or the way that we respect ourselves. Because not many people come from a higher consciousness and they can attack to your, in a way it's called aura, they can attack to yourself. And negative emotions could be a barrier to stop them becoming an energy vampire and emanating all that good vibes from you.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe you should tell us a little bit about your mastermind and workshops, because I think they're following a certain principle of self-knowledge.
Absolutely. After setting up my power coaching group and programs in Turkey, later on, I decided to create a workshop called Ikigai, which means the reason for being in Japanese. This word is an ancient word, and it's a combination of two parts. Iki means flow, gai means reason for being. So it's actually, when you combine it, the reason for being, why life force should flow through you and at what levels. This concept is pretty interesting because it's very related to life purpose and destiny. And I created these workshops and masterminds, online mastermind groups. So I help people to tap into their higher self, to tap into their higher potential, simply going through 10 steps. They can first trigger the questions and ask themselves, like, why am I here? Even asking this question leads them to look for new books, new movies, and I take them on a journey. And at the end of the 10-week mastermind program, I invite them to a program called Date with Destiny, which is the program I shared with you in the first conversation.
That's such a cool name, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where that's where I dated my destiny, and where I had this inner feeling why I'm here on this world and how I started living on purpose. Yeah, the mastermind programs, I do have it in a 4-hour version. It's a mini version. It just tells about what Ikigai, life's purpose, is. And it tells how people can find their own unique life purpose, including their date of birth and their names, their given names, the country that they were born into, their family characteristics. We go back to like seven lineages of background, which means like your dad, mom, your grandparents and grandparents. So we go back 7. How do you say that? What do you say that? Like
generations? 7 generations.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I was looking for that word.
Of course, that's fine.
Yeah. And in that 10-week frame, I created this in such a form that every week represents the consciousness of Tree of Life. In Tree of Life, which is a mystic teaching from Hermetic teachings as well as Kabbalah, there are 10 spheres, 10 consciousnesses. Every week we tap into one and find out what is unique to that person and into that consciousness that belongs to them. I would love to give an example, but it's such a deep conversation that it really needs a preparation. Yeah.
Well, I think a few of our listeners might be able to handle it. But I wanted to say, in my case, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but my parents gave me a middle name, which they gave me a middle name so I could use it as a pen name to become a writer. In other words, they decided I would be a writer before I was born.
Interesting.
And the thing is, I never wanted to use that name. I actually changed my name when I decided to become an actor, and it was for a science fiction series that I had. But basically, I never thought about it until much later. But I actually became a writer when I was in 2nd grade, and I was writing all the time, poetry and short stories. Eventually, started to write plays, and at one point, I decided to become a verse playwright. That was my first decision as to what my purpose was. But it changed later. I think that you can go through a sequence of understanding of who you are and what you're supposed to do. And it doesn't just, you may have an insight that's really kind of your mission, but that could change.
Yep.
And deepen, I would say.
Yep, absolutely. You're very right on that. Actually, every year, right after your birth date, you are given the chance to alter your destiny.
Tell us how.
Your birthday is very, very important. I'm not talking about astrology or anything like that. I'm more talking about connecting to your date of birth in ancient rituals. On the day that you're born, yes, astrology is important too, because all the stars and the movements of the universe at that moment, in a way, physically affects your birth. So that shapes your reality. But more than that, every year and every 7 years holds a special consciousness higher than yourself. I'll make it very, very simple. So in your DNA, not only that you carry the 7 generations of learnings, fear and love, positive and negative memories that comes from your elderly generations, you also hold the energies of the universe. And your date of birth is very specific and unique to you because your DNA is very unique. So on that day, same time, same second, another person borns, but their destiny, their life purpose is totally different than yours, because your DNA gets affected by that time, your parents, the country that you are born into, and also your surrounding. Even your birth doctor holds consciousness.
Well, in my case, I was born in Tinker Field, which is an Army Air Corps base before the Air Force was created in Oklahoma. I was born on the day the atomic bomb exploded.
Wow.
And it's been, it was August 5th here, it was August 6th in Japan. And when I was born, my father was a captain in the Air Force. He was a JAG, a judge advocate. He was like a lawyer. But he was made captain that day, and they gave me tiny captain's pins. I was never in the service, but he was a captain, and my son is now a captain in the Air Force. In medical, he's a medic. So,
wow.
I felt there was a significance there. It's always been of great concern to me. I realize that's not the exact time that I was born. That's probably more significant in terms of what you're saying about your explicit destiny.
What is your birthday again?
August 5th, 1945.
August 5th, 1945.
And now you're adding up numbers.
Not really.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I'm actually looking at the time frame and your DNA of your soul. Just like I mentioned, you every 7 years, every 10 years holds a specific energy and consciousness. In a way, you came as a healer in the core. So what happened in the past coming from your dad, you actually created another healer that would heal the wounds of war.
My son, yes.
So, yes, it is not a coincidence that your son became a doctor.
With that thought, we're going to have to take a break right now, and we'll be right back.
Sure.
My company, New Galaxy Enterprises, is a California corporation specializing in the creation of media and promotional content. We are focused on original, innovative projects that are good for humanity. These projects could be nonfiction books or novels, fictional screenplays or documentary content, websites and website content, commercial advertising content for print, audio, or video products on the internet, television, or radio, musical scores for advertising, television or film, video, audio editing, etc. We want to promote products and projects that support the environment, encourage a healthy experience in living, developing, nurturing, and useful technology, and offering platforms for positive, socially constructive entertainment or informative, transformative media. Our experience in creating a variety of products like this is rather vast, and we offer client-based and collaborative products, as well as the opportunity of active investors to join us in the creation and promotion of proprietary products, some of which are in latter stages of development. For more information, go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. That's www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. If you're interested in talking to us, just fill out the contact sheet and we will get back with you.
If you're not fond of books, you may be interested in watching Dr. Rodier's slide presentation on his website, hugorodier.com. That's HUGORODIER.com. It lasts 48 minutes and explains the simple roots of all diseases with pictures and graphs that are easy to understand. The presentation includes basic principles of physics, philosophy, anthropology, and history to truly integrate the most vital pillars of human health. We're back on the air, Yeliz, and you're going to tell us a little bit more about how you sort of manifest your own gift of coaching and helping people find their purpose.
Yes. Like as I was sharing some insights about your birthday, about you, your dad, and your son. Your birthday tells us that you came here for healing, which means it's all about directing your consciousness towards healing. First, healing your wounds, your parents, and then help others to heal. So life purpose, ikigai, it is not about doing, but it's about being. Our reason for being on this world is for our essence. We always think that, oh my God, I am going to accomplish this mission. I'm going to save the world. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But it is not that adds up value or meaning to the world. It is your essence, your core being. And your core being is healing. So whatever you do, you could be a bestseller author, or you could own your own TV show, or you could just be a banker. It really doesn't matter. Whatever you do, your essence, which is a healer, gets into that doing.
I see.
So that is called soul purpose. What I do is in our coaching sessions and also on my masterminds, I help people to find their essence. So once they tap into that essence, they can bring that essence to their doing. We call this inner ikigai and outer ikigai. Inner ikigai means, so there is an inner life purpose and an outer life purpose. Shall I go on?
Yes, very much. I was just writing that down.
So inner life purpose, again, as I mentioned, it's about your essence. Every breath, every being, every value that add into your doings in life. It could be through your work, it could be through your mission, or it could be through doing nothing. It's the heart vibration that you bring into this world is the reason why you're here.
Interesting.
That is why it is very important to every morning when you wake up to raise your consciousness to a higher state, raise your emotions. That is why all these self-help gurus and positive thinkers, that's why they say think positive, be positive, feel positive. Even though if you're not feeling it, fake it and faith it till to make it.
Okay.
Because as a sum, what Jung, the psychologist from
Switzerland.
do you know Carl Jung? Yeah, exactly. He talks about collective consciousness. What does it mean? Negative people, negative feelings, negative thoughts, that is a collective consciousness. Positive people, positive feelings, positive actions, that is a collective consciousness. So the more positive we become, the more true positive we become to ourselves, more peace we can create on the world.
Well, I think that's very important. I believe that, I believe that, first of all, in terms of the world, most of the people in the world, they haven't even really experienced their source purely. In other words, they may have a belief, they may have sort of religious experiences, but they are not really directly and purely in touch with their source. And then of those people, there are people who actually are receiving the guidance so that their life is directed by their positioning themselves in their true self, in their higher self.
Yes. It is actually not about believing. It's about seeing the God or goddess form in a person that creates the shift. Think about it. When you see a person acting kind, no matter how mean you are, then it helps you to tap into being kind.
Yes, I think so.
So whoever taps into higher dimensions of their soul or their ethics, their values, those people who can transform their thoughts and positive emotions into actions, transform the negative people. So you can go to a class and learn about meditation or thinking positive, think positive. It's not going to help. When you do a positive act, that's the time that positive thought, emotion, value gets embodied. It gets into a cellular level. In a way, the more positive you do and the more you live on purpose, the more magical moments you create, the more gratitude you find in every moment. It shifts your DNA. It changes your DNA. And when you change that experience at a cellular level, then you transform that DNA towards future generations. The only way to create a world, a loving and peaceful world, is to transform our ego towards our spirit.
Right.
So that's what I do in my coaching sessions. You were asking it earlier. I help people to see their dark sides or their egos, their shadow. I help them to do their own shadow work. and transform that into light, or I should say into a higher consciousness or into positive values.
What I found is that when I spent so many years meditating and doing spiritual practices like that, and then at one point I completely crashed. I was constantly failing. I couldn't understand it. And then I started to go into a phase of prosperity consciousness, sort of like The Secret, Catherine Ponder, Church of Religious Science. I did all these things, and that also didn't work. So there were both sides of the stick, there was like the pure consciousness and the manifestation. But what I found out from Dyer and what actually changed me, because I started to work on my anger and things like that, is that I began to move into another level of consciousness, and I started to experience guidance. And I realized that you can't just think of spiritual work as consciousness raising. You also have to think about it as manifestation.
Yes.
As above, so below, on earth as it is in heaven.
Yes.
And so I look at it as a two-pronged journey now, which comes together in that state. That state of higher awareness contains the mission statement, but it also changes the energy or the sort of level of consciousness, of awareness of self.
It is so beautiful that you brought up this topic, because at the moment, a lot of people are calling me for depression and anxiety, and they're like, what's going on? Why it's like this at the moment? And a lot of people are going through what we call dark night of the soul. And so much of the depression we see now in our society is actually what I call a spiritual crisis. So it is not a psychological one. So I tell them to stop medicating themselves with all those antidepressants and pills. I also tell them to stop themselves with alcohol, drugs, and sex and work and everything. And I ask them to let this darkness or failure go through you, because whatever seems dark is going to bring the biggest light. So that's they're happening to create that transformation. So it is there for transformation. So instead of like seeing it like, oh my God, why am I failing? Oh my God, I failed again. Oh my God, they did the same thing again. Instead of putting yourself in a victim position, put yourself to a victor position.
Yeah, that's really important. The
universe is working on you.
Well, somebody I read, I think it was in LinkedIn, said something like this, is when you see something going wrong, can you see it as not just as a lesson, but as an opportunity? Well, maybe a month and a half ago, the computer I use was really having problems, and it was so slow, and I thought the internet was slow. I know I had a problem today, but this was very, very serious because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have really the way to take care of it. And so what happened was I decided to use my computer that I gave my wife, which she doesn't really use in the way that I do. It was a newer computer, but it didn't have as many places to plug in things. So I used my old computer because I like that. And it turned out that this computer, which I had bought for myself originally, was fantastic. And all my problems with the combination of the internet and using, like I try to get a Word document, it take 2 minutes, 3 minutes to get up, went away. And I'm using a very powerful computer. And I say, well, maybe it's a good thing that thing died at the time, because I actually had the resources to get a very good computer, and it was right in the next room. And so you never know never know when something is going wrong, that maybe it's a prelude to something going really right.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rumi has a great quote on that. He says, how can you say if the below is not better than above?
Well, that's interesting. That's really fascinating, yes.
When you think you fall and when you think you're at the bottom of the earth, which is great because there's only way that you can go. That's up.
Yeah, and people who are in addiction, the people who get well are the ones who bottom out.
Yeah.
They wind up on the streets, they wind up in some terrible situation, and suddenly they get it. Or sometimes that's when the light comes. That's when they're... Well, listen, before we go, because we have to go shortly, unfortunately, and I hope we'll have many more opportunities, could you tell me how your mastermind works?
Absolutely. There's a link that I can provide you. People go onto that link, they read the content, and if it's a soul calling for them, if they feel like a pull towards the content, they leave their name, their email address. They receive the ebook, that free ebook that I've already placed it on that link, and they do pre-work. And every month we get together, every last Thursday of the month, we get together online and we talk about the stages of consciousness. We talk about life purpose. And if they decide to make it a further teaching or learning, they sign up to a 10-week program. That's how it works.
Okay, can you possibly give the link, or is it too long?
Oh my God, this is really, really long. So if our listeners, if they go to my Instagram page, which is my first name, last name, and official, and that would be Yeliz Ruzgar official, I have the post of the link. They can just click it and then sign up. And it's totally free.
Okay, well, basically, thank you for coming, and let's keep rolling on.
Let's do it.
The Coalition is a unique project designed to empower its members both individually and collectively. Besides individual empowerment, its broader focus is on the restoration, protection, and enhancement of citizen and human rights throughout the world through the aid of its members. As this project is centered in the United States, our first task is to create a website and social network infrastructure to promote collective efforts to take back our rightful control as citizens over our government as designed by our founding fathers. Although we must begin with the social network restricted to United States citizens, the organization will also host a global dialogue for the discussion of human rights by citizens of democratic nations throughout the world. If you're interested, please check us out in the GoFundMe.com website, entering in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. That is, go to GoFundMe.com and enter in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. This is Johnny Bluestar. Imagine a dark night. The wind is crisp and cool, the sky cloudless and majestic. Perhaps you are walking alone or with a loved one. Scattered about the night sky are thousands upon thousands of points of light. Look above you, friends of this restless planet. Out there into the night sky, unknown worlds await. Beauty behind imagination, intelligence beyond comprehension, life in its infinite forms and variations, yet all from the same seed, the same fundamental vibration. A cosmic tapestry of infinite light, yet each thread unique and indispensable. Look above you, out into the vastness of the night sky, for your destiny lies out there, somewhere among the stars. We go out with a song called The World Is Yours to Change. May it give us the inspiration to create our world as we choose, hopefully with love, freedom, and happiness is the foundation of our new universe.